welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming out. Glad, those of you who took a tour of the district, I'm glad that you made it here this morning. Welcome to Convocation Symposium. First, so I don't forget, I want to say thank you to Mrs. Mandela and Mrs. Sweeney who worked with you all year and helped you to create these wonderful projects. So thank you to those of you who shared at your own schools, and I know that you've elected people to present on behalf of your school here, so we're really excited to see your presentations. Also, our theme of the day is to have no regrets in high school. So we want to share with you information about advanced classes that are available to you in the 3 district high schools and prerequisites that they might require. So you'll be hearing from some supervisors, department chairs, and teachers from mostly from here at JFK, and they will be telling you about those classes as well. But first, we're so happy to be here at JFK. We go to a different school every year. We rotate. So Dr. Perry is here to welcome us from JFK. Yes, please, because he's recording.
He's recording. Normally I talk loud enough that I don't need this. So welcome, my Ford's people that I remember. Good to see you all. Everyone else, good to see you. Great to have you here. This is the first time I've been on this side of Convocation. I've come to visit and watch the kids at Ford's and Avenel through the years. This is a huge day, right? This is cool. I saw your projects, worked really hard on them, and they look awesome. So this theme of no regrets, right? If you get a chance to talk to our kids today, the JFK kids, I say our kids because hopefully those of you that will be coming to JFK, which happens to be the best school in the town, I will refer to you as our kids because that's just how it rolls when you come to school here. So hopefully you get a chance to talk to our kids, ask them questions, ask them about the kind of courses that you should take, and I would urge you to push yourself, take risks, stay involved. Those are the things we kind of tell people to do. So awesome to have you guys here. Enjoy the day. This is a great celebration. So congratulations, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Perry, for hosting. We're so happy to be here. Well, according to our schedule, we're up to Mr. Pastorino, but I think he must have gotten delayed, so we may be fitting him in a little later in the schedule. And we'll go ahead to our next speakers about athletics and health forms, Mr. Weisenstein and Ms. Mido.
Thank you for that thunderous ovation. I'm going to talk to you briefly about sports and the importance of obtaining an appropriate medical physical in order to play sports. First of all, this is my first year here at Kennedy, and I can assure you it is truly the best high school in the district, so every one of you is very lucky to be coming here. How many athletes do we have here? Okay, I'm going to run the list of sports, just so you can put this in the back of your mind. For fall, we have boys and girls cross country, we have football, we have boys and girls soccer, we have girls tennis and girls volleyball. For the winter, we have wrestling, boys and girls track, boys and girls basketball, ice hockey, and co-ed swimming. And then for the spring, we have baseball, softball, boys tennis, boys volleyball, boys and girls track, and golf. And then aside from the sports, we also have cheering and band. But in order to play sports, there are 2 most important things you have to have. One is after your freshman year, you have to be academically eligible. Something tells me I don't have to worry about that in this room. But as freshmen, when you come in, you're automatically eligible. But most importantly, you have to have a valid physical. A physical is not your entrance physical. A physical is a sports physical where you have a form that's online, or we can give it to you, and you have to get it done by your doctor, and then you have to hand it in to us, and then we have to send it out to our district doctor. So it takes about 2 weeks once you hand it in for your physical to be deemed okay. So my advice to you is if you plan on playing a sport, especially a fall sport, first thing you should do in the summer is hand in your physical in July. Then it's done, we'll get it back, and you'll have it in plenty of time. Don't hand it in September 7th, because that's going to be too late. Don't even hand it in mid-August, because a lot of the sports in the fall start in mid-August. It'll be too late as well. Hand it in the first chance you get. Now, there are some other forms you have to worry about, but I'm going to let Nurse Mito speak about that. But thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you all. And if I don't see you before the end of the year, enjoy your summer, and we'll see you in the fall. Thank you.
Okay, thank you and welcome. So you just heard about the majority of the forms that have to get filled out for athletics. The most important that was discussed is the athletic physical forms. Now it's a big document. There's a lot of stuff that has to get filled out on that by your parents, by you as well, and by your doctor. So it's important to make sure that when you get those forms before you hand them in to us, that every single section is filled out completely. Because if it's not filled out completely, we'll have to send it back home to you, and then you'll have to send it back to us, which can delay you being eligible for sports. So we don't want that to happen. So just make sure that everything's filled out completely and that they're, handed in prior to the deadline. Because as you heard, it could take 2 weeks once you hand it in before you're eligible to play your sport. And you want to be ready for that first practice. The other forms that are important too, if you have any medical conditions like asthma or food allergies that require an EpiPen, it's important to get those forms in with your athletic forms so you'll have those medications available with you when you're playing your sport. The other thing is make sure that you attend the coaches' meetings for any sports that you're interested in. You'll get the information on where to get your sports physicals, where to get the actual paperwork, and any additional forms that have to get filled out. And this way you'll get to know the deadlines that they have to be turned in as well. I think that about covers it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Speaking as a mom, everything happens much earlier with sports in high school. So talk to your parents about it if you're interested. You also may have heard some sports today that weren't available to you in middle school and maybe you're interested in. So it's great to round out your high school resume. So when you're applying for college, it's also great just to get you involved, meet other kids, have fun, and learn new skills that maybe you didn't get to try before. And that's really what the freshman sports programs are all about. So think about it. If you haven't done it before, it doesn't mean you can't try it in high school, but just be aware of those deadlines. Everything starts earlier in high school. At this point, I want to invite Ms. McKeever and her students to talk about G&T in the high schools, what that looks like.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to JFK. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the G&T program in the high school, how it differs from the middle school, what's offered to you. And then after, I'm also going to talk about one of the higher level English courses you can take when you're seniors. So the main difference between G&T in middle school and high school is that in high school it's offered as a full semester class. So in middle school you get pulled out a couple days a week. In high school you meet every day. One of the main features of the curriculum is independent study. So you have started doing independent study with your research you're going to present today. In high school, it would be a continuation of that. Each semester that you take the class, and you can take it all 4 years, each semester you choose a topic that you would like to research, and you learn research writing skills all the way through. So it's pretty beneficial in terms of research you might do later in college as well. And then the rest of the curriculum is divided into different thematic units, and we do all sorts of different things. We read fiction books, we read nonfiction books, we watch films, we watch documentaries, we read some philosophy, we study some art history. So it's a variety of material that you wouldn't necessarily get in other classes in high school, although sometimes it's related to what you're learning in other classes. So it's sort of an enriched curriculum that you'd be learning. Okay, so that's the main structure of the course. I'm going to pass it over to my students, and they will tell you what their experiences have been taking G&T.
So, hi guys, my name is Harsh. I'm a senior currently here at JFK. I took G&T for 3 years. This is the only year that I didn't take it, and that's because I had Miss McKeever as a teacher for another class. But so now that we heard the teacher's perspective of G&T, let me tell you about the student's perspective. So obviously she told you about independent study. You guys have a bit of an experience with that. But the difference is you can virtually get information about anything you want in your independent study, which is the main reason I took G&T. There are things you can't learn about in the classes that you're offered in every high school, and G&T gives you a pathway out of that. So that's mainly one of the reasons why I took G&T, and I can say that was definitely worth it.
My name is Matthew Rodriguez. I'm a junior at JFK. So I took G&T my first 2 years here. I'm not taking it this year, but I took it as a freshman and as a sophomore. And when we do the independent study, we do it throughout the whole semester. So it's not like you get 1 month to do this whole research paper and it's really stressful. It takes a really long time, and she walks you through every process and every step, and she makes it really easy for you to do the research. And yeah, you should do it because once you do it like 4 times, if you take it every year of high school, you'll have a lot of practice in it, and if you ever need to do it in college, you'll already be ready to do that.
Hi, my name is Jewel. I'm a sophomore here at JFK, and I took G&T last year. But I think my experience with G&T was honestly like it was very good because I was able to learn like research skills. Like when we did the independent study, I was able to learn about navigating through databases more and like researching and finding the information that I needed. And I've used that a lot like through my classes like this year too. And it's been really helpful in like all of my like assignments and things like that. And so yeah, you should take G&T and like learn these research skills because it's really useful just like throughout your high school.
Hi guys, I'm Rita. I also took it my freshman year, and I think it's especially important to take it like that year. I haven't taken it since, but I did have another class with Miss McKeever my senior year. But it's a really, really good segue for you to learn like the basic and the most fundamental parts of writing in general. And it's going to be about a topic that you choose, a topic that you like. So you're not going to lose interest. You're not going to be like frustrated about having to get this whole paper done. You're choosing it, and choose an interesting topic that's going to carry you throughout the whole semester. So definitely like it's really helpful for the upper like level classes that you're going to take in the future. So I definitely recommend you take it as a freshman and later on too, because there's so many opportunities for you there to research what you want and get a lot of good writing experience.
Hey guys, my name's Jasmine. I'm a senior here. When I took G&T, I was a freshman, and I remember that class was a pretty small class, but it was also a really fun class because we just got to break away from like the generic studies we do in like every other class, and we just got to like deeper conversations about different cultures, different religions, and like just different topics in general. It was just very interesting, and especially with the independent study, it's something that teaches you different things that you want to learn about. Like you aren't forced like a topic upon yourself. You could just pick whichever one you want. And especially within high school, it taught me to not procrastinate, because a lot of it was like you have to get your work done at a time, but there was like no due date specifically except at the end. So my piece of advice to you is like just take G&T. It's a nice different way of, and the people there are amazing.
So G&T, it wasn't only like the independent study, but there were also a lot of creative that came with it. Like we did the film noir project of that. It was Miss McKeever assigned like a screenplay and a comic book on top of that, or like a comic. And I thought that was really interesting, and I loved that. It was probably one of my favorite assignments I did. But one of my favorite parts was that even though I went to high school, I didn't lose the family that I built. I've been doing G&T since first grade, and I still felt the support I had from Miss Shank and Miss Azar and Miss Dell. So I felt like it was a family that still supported me when I was in high school.
Hi, my name is Victoria. I took G&T in freshman year, which I think is also a very important time to take it because it can kind of like set the foundation for your other classes. Like for the independent study, you're going to have to make something called an annotated bibliography, which you guys will learn. But you guys will use that in like your other classes. Like I took language lang. So like we did that. So it was kind of like easier for me. I didn't have to like learn something. Like it was just kind of like a review, kind of like doing a different topic. The independent study is also good because you get to choose whatever you want. So you get to learn for a whole semester something that you really are passionate about, or maybe you want to learn more about something. What I liked about G&T also is like the class itself there was a lot of discussing in the class. It wasn't like she was standing in class, Ms. McKeever was just like preaching to us, telling us information. It was more like a discussion. It was more of everyone telling us our thoughts and the opinions, and everyone was very open-minded. It wasn't anything you have to be nervous about. I remember we had a discussion, I don't know what the topic even was, but we would have like little readings every day, and then we would come in and talk about the readings and what we liked, what we thought was interesting, what we thought about the subject in general. So I think it's a really good way to open your horizons to different topics that you won't necessarily learn in your other classes. And it's not like, you don't have to be stressed about grades in that class as much. So it's not like an AP class where like maybe the class is interesting, but you're struggling with like, oh my God, I want an A on everything. But it's more of like you're actually trying to understand the information, and it's like a fun class. You get to learn things in a fun way.
Thank you, guys. So just to elaborate on a couple of points they made, you're not preparing for a test, so it is a little bit of a less pressure kind of a class, which is a nice feature of it. Now, I wanted to talk about two opportunities that are available at the other high schools. They're not available here yet, but we have teachers interested in teaching these AP courses, and it's just dependent on your interest in taking them. But that's the AP Capstone program, which includes AP Seminar and AP Research. So one class you would take in your sophomore or junior year, and the other class you would take in your senior year. So like I said, they're offered at Colonia and Woodbridge, not yet here. But it's building on the research skills that you would get in the independent study. The Capstone course, you're doing research as a group, and the seminar course, you're doing research as a independent.
Hopefully, by the time you're in junior and senior, we hope to have them here, so something to look forward to. The other thing I wanted to mention, some of the students have mentioned they didn't take G&T every year, and that's because you're taking other advanced honors, AP classes, and you can't always fit them into your schedule. You will stay enrolled in G&T unless you tell me you want to be taken out of G&T. Right? You'll stay enrolled in G&T, and you can take G&T classes whenever you can possibly fit them into your schedule, and we hope you'll do that whenever you can. We have about 4 minutes, and then we have a hard deadline, so I want to invite up Ms. Kenny and Ms. Lesniak, and also Ms. Kurek-Benfold. Ms. Kenny and Ms. Lesniak are going to talk to us about English, and Ms. Kurek-Benfold is going to talk to us about the biliteracy program. I think we also have some students with these programs. What I'd like to suggest, since we're limited for time, if we run out, they can come down to the cafeteria with us.
Hello, I'm Ms. Lesniak. I teach AP Lang, which is short for AP English Language and Composition. And what that is a comprehensive college-level writing course. This will be open to you your junior or senior year. And if you do well enough on the exam, if you choose to take the exam, and if you pass the exam, you could potentially get college credit to get you out of taking the dreaded expos, expository writing. Okay, it's one of the writing classes that is required in pretty much every college everywhere. So even if you don't choose to take the exam, even if you just take the class, it will prepare you for college-level academic writing. So regardless of whether or not you want to pursue that in college, it is a good course for you to take regardless of what you want to major in and what your future holds. Okay? Hopefully I see you there.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Kenny. I'm the AP Literature and Composition teacher. So after you have had Ms. Lesniak or Ms. McKeever, then you would come to me as a senior and have your AP Literature class. I think senior year seems like a far time away, not probably as far as you'd imagine. It happens pretty quickly. But I think as you're coming into your freshman year, I think you want to lay that foundation and get yourself ready for your AP course. According to College Board, AP Potential is for anybody who's willing to put in the effort to take a rigorous curriculum. So that's all of you here. You've already shown, like in your G&T program, and that's any of your peers in your middle school where you're already attending. So think about that. It requires something of you. I want to put in the effort. I want to do this. So I think that's important attitude. My students and I were talking in our classroom before that sometimes people take the AP classes because they want to have that designation on their transcript, which is important. But their suggestion as a whole was that you take AP classes that you're interested in the subject. As everybody's attested to, these independent study projects, when you have a choice and you like the subject, you perform better and you have a better experience in school. So I wish you all the best of luck in all your choices and decisions. It's an exciting time to come up from the middle school to the high school. And I'm going to give it to Ms. Kurak-Benfold to talk about biliteracy.
Thank you. So I'm Ms. Kurak-Benfold. I teach Spanish 1, 2, and 3 in the high school. I'm here to talk about the seal of biliteracy. What that means is that you will, junior year, take a test that proves you are not only proficient in English, because by then you will have taken a multitude of proficiency tests for English and have earned that. You will also take a test in a language, foreign language, whether it's Spanish, French, German. It actually could be more languages than you think, not necessarily the ones that are taught here. So if you speak a language at home and you are bilingual, this is something you should definitely consider your junior year. The one thing I do want to tell you guys is that you should be able to type in that language. If you do not know how to type in that language, start messing around on your keyboards now and figure out, hey, how do I type in Spanish? How do I get the accents here? How do I get the French accent there? That's something you're going to want to know your junior year. So it seems kind of far, but I'm kind of short, I'm kind of blonde, so when you get to the high school level, come find me, and we'll talk about taking the seal of biliteracy test.
So hi, my name is Arushi, and I just want to talk to you guys about taking AP classes. Sorry, I lost my voice. So I just want to say, like, I like taking AP classes, but they're like extremely hard. So when your first AP class will probably be your worst because the workload and then just the way the class is formatted is just completely different. But I don't think that should discourage you, because obviously everyone here like knows that their academics are like a priority. Personally, I prefer taking AP classes over regular classes, but that's also because I figured out how to manage my time. Like, okay, this sock baby is from AP Psych. Like, this is a major grade. Like, we had to make this and we have to take care of it. Like, this is my assignment. But we also take notes every day, and if you don't do them, you're not going to do well in the class. So personally, I think AP classes are really good, especially if you know you can handle the workload and you know that you can like discipline yourself to make sure you get the work done. But if you can't and you know that maybe I'll procrastinate, maybe don't take them or take a lower load, because they're not as easy as everyone thinks.
So we'd like to call up our group from Colonia Middle School presenting today. This is presentation number 2, Beauty Standards from Around the World.
I'm Tanvi.
I'm Isabella.
I'm Sophia.
I'm Mila.
And today we're going to be presenting beauty standards around the world. The first country we're going to be doing is America. The first beauty standard is white skin. In the past, it has represented wealth, and also there has been a bias that white skin is better. The next beauty standard is big blue eyes. It's known to represent youthfulness, and many women are insecure about their eyes, and so they will get eye injections to make them bigger. The next is being thin, and it's also expected for them to have a small waist and large hips along with that. The next standard is being young, and then it's a full-mouthed look with a prominent top lip. This has changed. In the past, it was thin and small lips, but it changed because women are now encouraged to wear red lipstick because men find it more attractive. Then we have a smaller and thinner nose. This is seen as feminine, and many women are insecure about it, so they will try obscure methods to make it smaller, thinner, or slimmer. Lastly, we have an oval round face, and it's seen as youthful and angelic, but if you don't have this feature, it is hard to fit into the beauty standard that society has created for women. The next country is India. You will see that there are many similarities with the two countries because they were ruled by Britain for a very long time. The first standard is thick, long, straight hair. It's seen as feminine and sophisticated, and also it's easier for a woman to find wedding prospects, and in Indian culture it's important for a woman to marry, and curls are seen as unattractive. Next we have almond lighter colored eyes. They're seen as angelic, but if they're too blue or too green or too small or too big, you will be criticized for your eyes. Next we have thick eyebrows. You can't have unibrows, and if they're too hairy, again, you will be judged for it. Then we have a sharp, thin nose. It's seen as a dream, the more sharp it is, the more admired you'll be, but if it's too pointy, you will be judged. Then we have plump, rosy, soft lips. They're seen as a delight, and so many women will try unusual methods to possess the feature. Then we have a symmetrical, roundish face with a sharp jawline and chubby cheeks. Although this is heavily enforced and seen as eye-pleasing, it's also very unlikely that you're able to possess all these features. Then we have fair skin, and in many places this can determine job opportunities, economic status, and even sometimes relationships. And so many women will try skin lightening to get lighter skin. Next we have no body hair. Many positive traits are associated with not having body hair, and it's seen as masculine and unattractive, so women aren't expected to have it. Then we have our hourglass figure, and they're expected to be slender along with this. And lastly, we have medium height.
So now I'm going to talk about African beauty standards. In Africa, there have been many specific beauty standards throughout history that have varied from tribe to tribe and from country to country. African women who are voluptuous or curvaceous and plump are viewed as the ideal type of woman. The beauty standards thrust upon these women are much higher than that of men, as in other cultures. If the women were too skinny, they were encouraged to gain weight, which in their culture is viewed as a sign of health. African cultures also emphasize that narrow noses and natural unprocessed hair are desirable. However, in certain tribes, beauty standards are quite different than the typical standard found throughout Africa. For example, African women who are part of certain tribes are seen as beautiful by the men if they have a lip plate along with a stretched lip. This is perceived as a sign of great beauty and commitment to their husbands. When their husband passes away, women are supposed to remove the lip plate to show that the woman's beauty fades away when they lose their only love. Now moving on to Portuguese beauty standards. When discussing Portugal's beauty standards, women are often judged more so on their natural facial features. Portuguese women are expected to wear little to no makeup and to have plump, rosy cheeks. In addition, petite women with dark hair have traditionally been viewed as more desirable, although the normal has changed over the year as Portugal's population has changed with the influx of immigrants. Today, as with other countries, much of Portugal's beauty standards are based on the Western world and what they see in American movies.
So next up is Spain's beauty standards. To keep things brief, the beauty standards in Spain are very similar to that of their neighbor Portugal. Natural beauty is highly valued in the Spanish culture. This means having a thorough skin and hair care routine. Dark and brunette hair is seen as beautiful along with fair skin on that note. Having a slim and fit body is also a big part of the beauty standards, which I noticed on my trip to Spain last fall. People would be doing things like yoga in the park or walking through the plazas. On the bright side though, the Spanish government has acknowledged that beauty standards can be harmful to one's physical and mental state with their campaign from last summer, which says, El verano también es nuestro, which translates to the summer is also ours. And it depicts people of all different body types and races having a good time at the beach. This is definitely a step in the right direction that other countries should follow. Next is the Middle East. So moving away from Europe, in the Middle East, beauty focuses a lot around facial features. This includes almond-shaped eyes, slim and straight nose, a round face, and arch-shaped eyebrows. To achieve this, plastic surgery is very common. In Iran, nose jobs are especially common and are a sign of status and wealth, so much so that some people will keep the bandages on longer than necessary to emphasize this. But what if I told you that wasn't always the case? In the 19th century, when the country was still called Persia, the beauty standard was actually to have a masculine appearance with a monobrow and a thin mustache. This certainly varies a lot compared to the beauty standards we have today.
I'm going to talk about the beauty standards in the Philippines and in East Asia. As for the Philippines, being curvy is one of the body standards and beauty standards because having a slimmer body is seen as not desired by men, so women desire it in themselves. Having a lighter skin tone is one of the beauty standards because of colonization, whitewashing, racism, and bias. Having white teeth is one of the beauty standards because it is seen as unhygienic if you don't have them. Having a nose job and having fuller lips are also some of the beauty standards because Filipino women desire to have a more plastic and fake look. So when they do that, they want to have nose jobs and fuller lips. Having small feet and long legs are also some of the beauty standards, again, because of the certain physique that is desired by men. Now I'm going to talk about East Asia. In East Asia, some of the beauty standards include having a slim figure, again, because being overweight is seen as unhealthy. Having pale skin is another one of the beauty standards similar to the Philippines because of racism, bias, and whitewashing. And a lot of women in both East Asia and the Philippines use skin soap to lighten their skin. Having double eyelids, a high nose bridge, a melon seed-like face, and a childlike appearance are also some of the beauty standards because most East Asian women are born with those features. So if you don't have those beauty standards, then you're seen as an outlier. And then being dainty and slim and having long legs are some of the beauty standards because it is seen as, if you don't have that physique, then you're just seen, again, as an outlier. So.
Lastly, I'm going to talk about Barbie. Barbie came out on March 9th, 1959, and it was made by Ruth Handler and Mattel. Many children look up to their Barbie as a role model on what they want to look like. And this can be harmful because many of the Barbies have one look, and so many children will try to harm their bodies, and this has like a negative effect on them at a young age. But you can see that Barbie has progressed over time, and they have become more inclusive. But I'd like Mila to talk a little more about that.
Again, most young girls have had Barbies or had dolls, and as Tanvi said, most people look up to them and want to look like them. But the beauty standards that apply to Barbies are completely unrealistic and wrong, so applying them is very harmful to yourself. And with that, thank you for listening.
At this time, we're going to have a little informational session with Mr. Graham from JFK. He's going to talk about social studies in the high school.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm Mr. Graham. I'm a teacher here at JFK. I teach microeconomics and macroeconomics. Those are both AP courses. Those would be really good courses for you to teach. So I'm just going to give you some information, take any questions that you might have on some of our social studies courses, right? These courses are taught out of the social studies department. What grade are you guys in? All right, so as coming into high school, you're pretty much your only option AP-wise, and I've been talking to my students a little bit about this to give you some good insider information. All right, if you're a G&T student, the only AP Social Studies class you're going to be able to take your freshman year is AP World History, which is a really good class to take. It's literally the history of the world, right? You're going from ancient Sumerians all the way up to modern times. That's what you got to do. That's what you got to get into your freshman year. You could take that as an R-Track class if you want to as well, but for you guys, I would definitely recommend getting into that on the AP level, all right? Sophomore year, your options open up a little bit more, all right? You can't take world history. Your only option is to take that as a freshman. What my students tell me the plan, right, if you're, for the social studies electives is what people do, they'll take AP US 1, all right, so you take AP US 1, and then junior year, you could take our Syracuse classes, our super classes that are AM classes. You do have to pay for those classes. It's way cheap compared to a college class. You can ask your guidance counselors about pricing information. It does change, but you would take that at 7 o'clock in the morning the whole year. That would be US 1 and US 2. So basically you end up repeating US 1. I thought that was kind of weird. I didn't realize a lot of kids did that. However, they like it. They say it's good. It's kind of like a refresher. So a lot of students will take AP US 1 and then they'll take the super classes. You also have the option of taking AP US 1 and AP US 2. You don't have to pay for those classes. They're college level courses as well. In order to get credit for an AP class, you just have to take the AP exam in May, right? The first 2 weeks of May, there's AP exams. Every AP class has an AP exam. Your other options beginning sophomore year, you could take microeconomics or macroeconomics. You'll most likely have me as your teacher if you do that and you come to JFK. The other schools obviously offer those courses as well. We also have U.S. Government and Politics AP, which is a great class to take rather. Let me see, and then by junior year, you got all of our courses opened up. So AP-wise, you got micro, macro, AP Euro, which is a great class to take as well, focusing obviously more about European history. Facing History is a great class to take. It's a Holocaust genocide course. That's only offered in our track. We also have Law and Society. You can take AP Psychology. They're introducing a sociology course that is through Middlesex County College. It's called Sociology C, similar to the Syracuse course, I'm assuming. I don't know too much information about that, but that will be available to you guys in a couple years as well. And then you got your US 1 and your US 2. You could also take AP Government and Politics senior year or junior year, African American Studies, Sports History, and World Geography are all only offered at the R track level. All right, so you do have a bunch of cool options there, social studies wise. Do you guys have any questions? All right, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Graham. So you're hearing about a lot of different courses that are open to you, just putting some things on your radar screen. If you've already sat with your guidance counselor and you have an idea of your schedule, but you hear something today that might influence your freshman schedule, you should talk to your guidance counselor because you want that set before you go off to high school. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more later on about some of the college classes that Mr. Graham was offering, as well as the AP classes. We'll spend some more time on that later. At this point, I'm going to call up our presentation number 1. We're kind of going backwards a little bit. And presentation number 1 is Avenel Middle School on the Big Bang, Ritesh Chopra.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ritesh Chopra, and my project was about the Big Bang and the effects. The Big Bang was a rapid expansion of the universe, and the reaction was from the quantum mechanics, which is the reason why the Big Bang occurred. The Big Bang is 13.8 billion years old, so 13.8 billion years in the past. That's when the Big Bang started, and the Big Bang has been expanding ever since then. The intense heat didn't allow atoms to form until 380 years after the Big Bang, the first atom formed, which was hydrogen. And then after that, more atoms combined with hydrogen and made helium, and this process kept happening for billions of years to now, which we know about 118 elements. The universe is made out of 3 types of matter, which makes up the universe: dark energy, dark matter, and ordinary matter. Dark energy fills 68% of the universe, and what it is it keeps the universe expanding. So that's what's been keeping our universe expanding for billions of years. Dark matter fills 27% of the universe, and scientists don't really know a lot about it, but we do know that it holds galaxies together, and it's like glue. So that's what dark matter is. And then ordinary matter is what everything is made out of. Astronomical objects, we are made out of it. Yeah. So the first atoms, as I'm going back, formed 380,000 years after the Big Bang. But 100 million years after the Big Bang, the first stars formed. And the first star was mainly made out of hydrogen and helium. So 380,000 years, and then 100 million years later, that's when the first star formed. And as more stars shined, the galaxies started forming together. Galaxies inhabit astronomical objects, some including planets. Well, mostly planets. Since planets are maintaining galaxies, some planets include living organisms, meaning galaxies also maintain living organisms, as we are living in the Milky Way galaxy. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to the creation of our solar system. So basically, millions of years ago, there was this gas, and scientists call this a supernova. And in the middle and the center of it, this gravity came together and formed our sun. And then, so basically, mostly all the gases were taken away as the sun formed. And then later, the rocks came together to form our first 4 planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. And Mercury being the first one, Venus being the hottest, Earth being the one that contains life, and then Mars, scientists are finding evidence of life on it as they find rivers, and the leftover rocks, and then leftover rocks from the first 4 planets and ice form comet and asteroids in our asteroid belt, which is basically a belt between Mars and Jupiter. Now, since the sun formed, there was some leftover gases, which formed our 4 gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Jupiter being the biggest and Saturn being the known with rings. Uranus being the one that is upside down because its orbit is supposed to be like this, and it was turned around. And then Neptune being near the Oort belt, or the Kuiper belt. Astronomical objects. The universe is made out of astronomical objects. Planets, stars, galaxies, black holes, and even comets are all part of the vast universe. And scientists have only discovered 46 billion light years. So we haven't discovered all of the universe yet. We've just discovered a fraction of it. Now, I want to talk about the first astronomical object. It's a black hole. A black hole is the strongest thing in the universe. Its gravity is so strong that not even light can escape it. And this is why black holes are so terrifying. So we don't know a lot about black holes, but we do know this. The event horizon is where it starts, before you get sucked in. In this part, you're going to be stretched and stretched. That's why scientists don't know what happens when you get inside the black hole. And the next one are planets. Planets hold life, or they either hold something up. Planets, newly discovered planets are called exoplanets, and dwarf planets are smaller than the average size and not having a clear orbit or being round enough. That's what makes a dwarf planet. Now, planets like Earth have been discovered, and they're called exoplanets, and scientists are still finding planets that support life on it. Let's see. And now I want to talk about comets, which are these big pieces of ice in our universe. They go into our universe, or our solar system, or they roam in the wide darkness. Now, they don't break apart or melt because space is really cold. It's negative 400 degrees in space. And when a comet passes by, the tail is always going to be on the opposite side of the sun. And asteroids are these big pieces of rocks in space. They may be leftovers from planets colliding, or they just form out of the little dust. And asteroids, they are used to destroy or build rings around planets, or just roam around as well. They destroy planets by crashing into them, and this causes craters, and scientists use them to discover how old the planets are. And they build rings around planets. As you can see, Saturn has a lot of asteroids around it, making a ring visible. And Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune do have rings, but it's not as thick as the others. And a little fun fact, Saturn has the most visible rings, and it's not that dense. So if you found a big enough source of water, you can make it float. And that's it.
At this point, I'd like to invite Ms. Kurowski and NHS up to talk about the National Honor Society in high school.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? Good. So I don't know if anybody mentioned to you, but hopefully in your schools as well, we are celebrating Women's History Month. And we are having Women's Empowerment Theme Week this week. So hopefully, by a raise of your hand, can anybody tell me, who am I? Yes. Very good. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. How many of you have heard of her? Fantastic. Do yourself a favor, and all of you hear about her at some point when you have some free time, okay? Who could tell me something about Ruth? RBG. Her and I were buddies, okay, in my dream life, but. Anything you know about her? Why was she so important? Role model for me? Historical icon? She was a Supreme Court justice, the highest court in our land, correct? First woman, second woman to be on the Supreme Court? Second. First Jewish woman, second woman. Okay. Sandra Day O'Connor was the first Supreme Court justice. And now we also have Sonia Sotomayor, who is on the Supreme Court. So she definitely paved the way. Okay, that being said, just wanted to point that out. So I am actually here to talk to you about National Honor Society. So many of you may be in your junior honor society at your middle school and have been doing some fantastic things with that. Wonderful. So let me just give you a little information about the Honor Society here at JFK. I will preface with, because we are still considered to be in the pandemic, things have changed, requirements have been adjusted. So let me go back pre-pandemic. We take our National Honor Society duties very seriously. So applicants would have had to have, this is pre-pandemic, 20 hours of community service their freshman year, 20 hours their sophomore year, and 10 their junior year. You do apply halfway through junior year. The minimum requirement is a 3.3 GPA, so if you don't even have that, you cannot apply, okay? And you would had to have been involved in at least 2 extracurricular clubs and or sports every year. So now we have lessened that because we couldn't all get out to those veteran homes and hospitals and the libraries to help out like we were. So we did take that into consideration. So what I want to tell you is, as of now, and actually our junior class of 2024 was just tapped on Friday and told that they are going to be inducted this Wednesday night, tomorrow night. 64 juniors were just admitted into the National Honor Society, and they had about 5 hours per year of community service, and they are involved in many extracurriculars in our school, at least 2. And they have maintained fantastic grades, okay? So I would just keep in mind to be involved as much as you can in the community, because community service is not just going to a doctor's office and filing papers for that doctor. No, it's more like going to the library and helping out there, okay? Or maybe writing some letters for a veteran's home. There are plenty of walks in the area. We do a breast cancer walk here, making strides against breast cancer. So you'll see that freshman year for those of you coming to JFK, but all the schools do participate in the area, all the high schools. So any kind of walks that you can find out about. There are so many clubs. I mean, there's a club for literally everything you can imagine, especially at JFK because we're so wonderfully diverse. There's guitar club, there's gaming club, there's student council, key club. So if you have an interest, you will probably find your niche here, okay? As these fantastic ladies can tell you, they are my seniors, and boy, this year went fast. I can't believe we're inducting another class already. So they have also kept up with those community service commitments during their senior year, even while applying to college and all the fun things. Okay, so just keep up with that service, be involved, be a good role model, make sure that you have your integrity intact, okay, because cheating and plagiarism and all that jazz is not tolerated, but I know you got a good head on your shoulders. Do you have any questions about it, what we do, about the requirements? Again, that will really depend in a couple of years where we're at, but I would just continue to stay involved. We even have an aviation club. I see some paper airplanes. That would probably be really good to have in the club. Nothing? No? Okay. Oh, go ahead. What do we do in National Honor Society? Okay, Shani, go ahead.
Oh, okay. We do a lot of things, but one of the main things that we focus on is community service and serving the people around us. Recently, we went on a trip to Kennedy Park, School 24. We helped out little kids read, and then we did like activities with them. We went to school, was it 4 and 5? Which I don't remember, Port Reading? School 9. We went there and we did the same. We hold blood drives at school. We have another one coming up actually. And yeah, we just really focus on helping the people around us. And yeah, it's really fun. Apply.
What are like the current requirements? I know you shared the pre-pandemic. What are like the current requirements?
Okay, so currently, thank you, Shani. Currently, the juniors that just got inducted, they did not have to have anything their freshman year because their freshman year was 2020-21, where we were sort of just getting our feet back in the door. But their sophomore year, they had to have at least 5 hours serving the community, doing something. And we also accept like outside of the school. It could be something at your temple, your church, your mosque, okay? Because I know a lot of people belong to organizations and they do a lot of wonderful work there. So I want you to keep that in mind. And then at least one extracurricular, as well as their junior year, another 5 hours, and at least 2 extracurriculars. Because we felt like this year we're pretty much back, you know, really involved, so we felt like that was fair. And again, that 3.3 GPA is a must. Okay? All right, anything else you guys feel is important to add? Or you get snazzy sweatshirts, you get snazzy polos, we're not wearing them today, but you get a snazzy shirt, you get a snazzy balloon, it's all snaz. Oh, a snazzy tassel, snazzy yellow cord. Oh my goodness, it's all the good things. All right, well, good luck to you. I hope you're enjoying your day today. I wish you the best of everything. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. And now I think we have Mr. Baginski here to talk with us about science. Just so you know, all of the teachers, supervisors, or department chairs that you're seeing that are from JFK, they have counterparts at Woodbridge High and Colonia High. So Mr. Baginski is talking to us about science, but it applies throughout the district.
Good afternoon and welcome to John F. Kennedy Memorial High School. I'm Mr. Baginski, the department head of science, and I've been asked to talk to you guys about some of the advanced classes that we offer in the science department. I'm going to start out with our advanced placement classes, better known as the AP classes. We offer the AP classes in biology, environmental science, physics, and chemistry. Each one of these AP classes carries prerequisites. Prerequisites are classes that you have to take and pass before you're accepted into any of these AP classes. That brings me to scheduling. When you guys come in as incoming freshmen, most of you who are college bound are going to be taking biology R-Track. The other option is to take environmental R/S. Biology is the one required science that you must take. You need 3 science, lab-based science classes to graduate. The other 2 are not going to be an issue because every science class that we offer here is lab-based. Let's see, what else? Oh, we also offer a SUPA class. SUPA stands for Syracuse University Project Advance. It's typically taken by seniors, and you get college credit for this class at a significantly lower cost than what your tuition is going to cost you once you get to your institution. So I encourage you to look into that as well. Getting back to scheduling for a second, those prerequisites, your sophomore year is a very critical year for you because that's when you want to try to take the classes to fulfill these prerequisite requirements for the AP classes. Most people typically, most of you students typically take more than 3 science classes. Usually it's north of 6. Okay, you don't want to get in a situation your junior or senior year when you don't have the appropriate prerequisites to take the AP classes that you're interested in, okay? We also offer some really exciting electives. We have anatomy and physiology in the art track. We have engineering 1, 2, and 3. You would take one of those each year. And we also offer forensics S&R. My door is open. My office is in the science wing. I welcome you to come anytime you'd like. It's an open door policy. I can discuss with you more details about any one of the classes or specific prerequisites for each one of the classes. Also, we usually have multiple instructors who teach the same class. So if you're more of a hands-on type person, you may want to take the class with the more hands-on teacher. Sometimes we can't accommodate that, but we do our best to. Any other questions? You guys are welcome to ask. Any questions right now? No? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Baginski. Also, if you hear from anyone today, or if you're wondering, okay, but who's the science person over at Woodbridge High or Colonia High? In the G&T office, I can be your contact person, so if you or your parents have specific questions about high school courses or subject areas, you can always call the G&T office, and I can put you in touch with the right person. So at this point, I want to shout out to Mrs. Azar, who came to visit you on her lunch break. I know it's been a few years since most of you have been in her classes. Thanks, Mrs. Azar. And then we're going to go into presentation number 3 from Ford's Middle School, the FBI, with Haley Byrne.
Hi, so good morning, everybody. My name is Haley Byrne, and for my presentation, I decided to do the FBI. The FBI was created by Theodore Roosevelt in 1908, and basically why he created it was to investigate corruption of the government. And later on, about like 16 years later, John Edgar Hoover, he took over, and then he was named the first director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is what the FBI stands for. And at this time, the only thing that the FBI did was investigate crimes. And later on, as the FBI grew and we get to the point we are now, they investigate a lot more things other than crimes. So if you are interested in being an FBI agent, they are very specific with who and what they want you to be able to do. So you have to be 23 to 36 years old in age, and this is very specific, and they are very you have to be this age. If you are 36 and you try out for the FBI, if you're about to turn 37, they do not want you. They want people who are in their youth and they're in their prime age for physical fitness, mental ability, etc. And you have to at least have 2 years of full-time experience. And if you don't have 2 years of full-time work, if you have 1 year, that means you have to have a master's degree as well as your bachelor's degree. And you have to meet with the special agent fitness requirements. This is, for example, running, driving, trying to investigate things. You have to be sure you are physically able to be an FBI agent. And along with driving, you have to have a valid driver's license and be able to drive for at least 6 months prior, because the FBI requires you to obviously drive a either FBI car or a cop car if you're transporting to different places. And like most jobs, you also have to be a U.S. citizen. But what does the FBI do? Well, they're an organization that does investigations that the local police cannot do. The FBI, they have a lot more leniency than the police. They have more power. For example, the police, they only really investigate, things like local crimes, things that are in a smaller scale. But the FBI, they have to investigate a lot more deeper, more crimes that are at a higher level. And they have resources that go above law enforcement as well. And they investigate a lot of really important things. For example, terrorism, cybercrime, counterintelligence, civil rights, public corruption, weapons of mass destruction, organized and violent crimes, and white-collar crimes. For example, counterintelligence, this is when basically a computer system has gotten hacked. For example, school systems, with your Chromebooks and everything,
This is the most popular thing for people who commit counterintelligence crimes to do. So what the FBI does is, if all the computer systems are hacked or whatever, what the FBI does is they come in and they fix that. They have their computer skills. They have the people who are part of their team that are really good with working with computers. And what they do is they try to find the person that hacked it, and then they stop it. And if you are still, interested in being a FBI agent, you have to go through something called the SASS process, which stands for the Special Agent Selection. And the first thing you have to do is submit an application. And then after you submit the application, they make you take a test. This is called the FBI Phase 1 test. And there are about 2 tests that you have to take, but you have to pass this one first. But then after you pass it, you get to go to a meet and greet interview. And this is just like any other regular meet and greet interview. You sit down with the interviewer, they ask you questions, why you want to take this job and stuff like that. And then after you go through the meet and greet interview, you have to go to the Phase 2 test, which this test goes like a little more deeper into like what you have to pass and stuff like that. And then after you pass that test, you receive a conditional appointment officer, which what they do is they show you around and they like kind of give you the feel of what it's like to work with the FBI. And then after that, you have to undergo a background investigation. This is just like a background check, like they check who you are. Like when you have a background check, they kind of like check who you were as a kid in school. They ask your neighbors what type of person you were. It's just basically to get to know you through other people's point of view. And the last thing you have to do when you're going through the SASS process is to pass the physical fitness test. And after that, then if you pass all those things and they think that you are able to be an FBI agent, they let you in. But the FBI is very specific on who they want and who they don't want. Around like 10,000 people could try out, and they would only take like 1,000. It's very hard to get into. But other than that, that was the FBI.
Okay, at this point, let's bring up presentation number 4, Island Middle School Electric Vehicles with Lohitash, Raj, Arush, and Roshan.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you on this fine afternoon. Today, we'll be talking about the concept of electric cars, how they're changing the world, the pros and cons, and whether or not it's a good idea. This presentation would not have been possible without the help of
and Raj Parikh.
And Lohitak Sharige.
He's in back.
Go up there.
Yeah, go up there. So now we'll be talking about the benefits and disadvantages of electric vehicles. So many of you might have thought that electric vehicles only have benefits and everything's so good about them, but that is not the case. So we'll be starting off with the benefits. Electric vehicles have no tailpipe emissions. They have no fuel to burn. Have any of you guys know why electric vehicles have more tranquil driving than gasoline vehicles? It's like they function smoother than gasoline vehicles.
Essentially, the question is, do you know why electric vehicles usually are more calmer when you're driving them? Anyone?
Because in a gas car you have an engine, which causes like a lot more turbulence and stuff.
Okay, that is true. In a gasoline car, to power the car, essentially you're making tiny explosions in the engine bay. This creates a lot of noise, vibration, and heat, which eventually leads to an uncomfortable experience. And this can easily be avoided by electric cars since they don't have tiny explosions in them. It's pretty self-explanatory.
So moving on, electric vehicles are cheaper to power as electricity is cheaper. They have less maintenance as there are less moving parts. The state of New Jersey has been giving federal tax credit as an incentive of drivers to purchase electric vehicles. They're quicker than gas vehicles, but there are many exceptions, and they're less complicated and more reliable as they're less moving parts. Moving to the disadvantages, Electric vehicles have given less range. So the history of electric vehicles was basically they were being developed, but then they got stopped when when gasoline vehicles came in. They have a higher production price, more manufacturing emissions, and higher electricity bill. In the battery, there's a material used called lithium ion. It is very expensive to find. It's very rare to find. And the expensive battery replacement, because the battery is one of the biggest components of electric vehicles, and the expensive charging stations.
So the reason they have higher production price and more manufacturing emissions, as well as an expensive battery replacement, is because the batteries of an electric vehicle commonly have a material known as lithium, okay? And this material is incredibly rare, and it's not been mined for a while, so the process isn't very eco-friendly yet. So essentially, to get 1 ton of 1 ton of lithium, manufacturers have to sort through 750 tons of wastewater and salt and all of those materials just to get 1 ton and make a few batteries out of them. This will get better as the electric vehicle market progresses, but as of right now, it's simply not at the stage it should be.
All right, so how many of you have lithium-ion batteries in your house, like your AA or AAA batteries? Raise your hand.
All your hands should be up right now.
Yeah, you all have them in your house. The electric vehicle is actually composed of several of these lithium-ion batteries that you find in your everyday life. Each of these batteries has 3 thin layers. The bottom and top layers are both made of electrodes, and the middle is perforated plastic. While charging, the lithium ions go from positive to negative electrodes, and vice versa. When it's driving, they go from negative to positive. Electrolyte liquid connects the 2 electrodes, and external movement from the anode to the cathode powers objects. The anode is the negative and the cathode is the positive. So as you can see from the top right diagram, you can see 3 rectangular gray rectangles. This is the traction battery pack, which you find under the electric vehicle, which is why Teslas and the other electric vehicles have a frunk, because there's no need of an engine there. And those 3 rectangles are all composed of your small lithium-ion batteries.
Okay, one thing I'd like to add on to that, in your everyday, like you said, everyday battery, like AA, AAA. So one thing I'd like to add on to that is in your regular AA, AAA batteries, like you said, anode is the minus sign and cathode is the plus sign. Those will be on either side of your batteries. One, like in your typical, let's say, RC car, will be attached to the spring, the other to the metal component.
So can we get a guess of how many small batteries there are in one electric vehicle? Anyone? Rashman? Can you repeat that? 25. 25? No, not really. Pratha? No, it's, so for a Rivian R1S, which is a electric SUV, there are 7,776 batteries in the car. So it's a lot.
Okay, next slide.
So next we'll be talking about how motors work. There are 3 parts in a motor that are used in electric vehicles. There's the stator, there's the rotor, and there's a low friction bearing, kind of like what you would find in a fidget spinner. The rotor is a plate with conduction bars on it, attached to an axle that's then attached to the wheels and therefore drives the car. The stator is a sleeve with electromagnets inside, and it slides around the rotor. The low friction bearing is the only connection between the stator and the rotor. It's the only thing holding the motor in place. There are 2 types of currents that are used in electric cars. There's the direct current and there's the alternating current. The direct current is the type of current that the battery gives to the rest of the car. In between, there's something called an inverter, and what this does is it translates that direct current into an alternating current so that the motors can use it. Motors can't use direct current directly from the battery. So the electromagnets of the stator change polarity at the right time to induce similar polarities to conduction bars, which are placed on the rotor, which is like I mentioned before. This creates similar polarity, and like when you're pushing two similar magnets together, they tend to repel. This property is also used in this vehicle, and these opposite sides repel and push each other to produce a spinning motion, which then spins the wheels of the vehicle and makes them spin. The speed of the vehicle, so in a gasoline vehicle, when you hit the accelerator, you're changing the amount of fuel that goes into the engine, and the computer in the vehicle figures out the rest. But in an electric vehicle, when you press the accelerator, you're not releasing extra gas or anything, because there is no gas. What you're doing is you're increasing the frequency of the AC power to the motor, and this makes the car go faster. And I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of regenerative braking at some point in time. Basically, this is when the motor is producing energy like a generator or an alternator by spinning and then transferring it to electricity.
So now we'll be moving on to the history of electric vehicles. Believe it or not, the first electric vehicle was invented in 1832 by Robert Anderson. It was the carriage. This was not very complex. It was just like a car and a battery and a motor attached to it.
Next, in 1886, the first internal combustion engine vehicle, or gasoline-powered vehicle, was created by Carl Benz. And interesting point, as you can see, the first electric vehicle was created before the gasoline vehicles.
And then, because EVs were actually, like you said, created before these gasoline vehicles were created, EVs began to grow in popularity because they were just more advanced than these gasoline-powered vehicles were.
And then in 1913, the first silver bullet to the electric vehicle was delivered. Henry Ford, which is well, you guys know the car company Ford. Yeah, it was named after Henry Ford, and I'm pretty sure he created it. Henry Ford created the gasoline engine production line. What this did is it made gasoline cars extremely popular and cheap to produce. And because of this, you could get a gasoline car for a third of the price that an electric car cost. At this point in time, people decided to save money to be able to buy a gasoline car as to buying an electric car. And yeah.
So in the year of 1935, gasoline vehicles grew popularity and electric vehicles faded away due to Henry Ford and how he invented the gasoline engine production line. They were widely popular and many people started creating these, therefore they were very cheap.
Okay, so in 1990, the Clean Air Act was passed. Essentially, this was a series of acts that the government passed to ensure safety to our atmosphere. Because gasoline-powered vehicles were so common, there were a lot of emissions from the tailpipe, and it was causing too much pollution. So they had to reduce the amount of emissions that could go into the atmosphere, which led EVs to grow in popularity.
And then in 2003, Tesla Motors, one of the huge contributors to the electric vehicle society or company, was created by not Elon Musk, but Mark Tarpenning and Martin Eberhard. Popular belief that it was created by Elon Musk, but it wasn't actually created by him, though he is a major role in that company.
And then in 2021, the first notable performance breakthrough was made by the 120,000 Tesla Model S Plaid. Now, this might seem like a lot of money for a car, and it is, but if you look at the facts, you realize that this car was able to beat more expensive cars. Sometimes they could cost 10 times as much, and this car was still capable of easily beating them in performance records. This car actually set a 0 to 60 record of 2.1 seconds, which is brutally insane.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about electric vehicles aren't just cars. You might look it up on Google. You'll probably see first search result will be electric cars. But those aren't the only thing. It's electric vehicles, and there are other types of them other than cars. So the other types include the electric train, which was created nearly 50 years ago and has since grown in such popularity that the steam trains are basically obsolete. It's just there are so many pros, such as it's cheaper, first of all, which these major train companies really liked. And basically it could go further. It didn't require a person to be hired at the front to like keep putting this fuel into the carriage. The only con that I could find was that it didn't work nearly as well under bad weather conditions. And it also did require overhead lines, but as a whole, it was better for the electric trains.
Okay, so the electric train, can one person tell me one reason why you would choose a gasoline or a traditional train over an electric train? Anyone? Come on, bro. Jan Jalatur. Okay, so not exactly, but the reason you would sometimes you could prefer a gasoline or a traditional train over electric trains is when you're traveling through rural areas such as mountains or something. In more rural areas like countrysides, you don't have as much electricity, so at some point you realize that the gasoline engine is just easier to run and more effective in rural areas.
And I'd like to add on to what he said. Again, these electric lines that electric trains require to be overhead, this would be harder to put in place in these rural areas. And now we have the electric boat. Kind of a new thing in the electric vehicle world, but basically you have an electric motor in the back, basically the same thing as a normal boat would be, but it has like, I call them prongs, but basically there are 3 sticks that come out the bottom of the boat, 2 in the front, 1 in the back. They kind of they kind of work like a surfboard kind of motion, kind of propelling you like above the surface of the water, which makes for a cool aesthetic look.
Additionally, so these apparatuses at the bottom of an electric boat are referred to as aerofoils, and what they do is they create lift while going through the water to raise the boat out of the water, and so that the aerofoils are the only thing touching. This is beneficial for 2 reasons. Number 1, it looks really cool. I wish we could show you a picture. And number 2, it increases the efficiency of an electric boat by a ton, okay? So in a regular boat, you have the entire bottom surface of the boat rubbing against the water and creating a lot of friction, meaning that the boat loses a lot of energy while it's moving. However, in an electric boat with aerofoils, the aerofoils are the only thing touching the water, and therefore there's a lot less surface area and a lot less resistance, which is a key in efficiency.
And then again, like the electric boat, there is not as new, as it's pretty old now, but you have the electric motorcycle. You have companies such as Damon creating these motorcycles. Basically, the motorcycles can handle a lot more than the gas counterparts can, because there's just a lot more space inside the motorcycle, since the gasoline counterparts need all these like engines and fuels and pipes in there that electric motorcycles just don't need it all. There's a lot of newer technology in them, such as sensors that can like tell what's around you and alert you of danger sources, such as what electric cars have as well. You want to talk?
Are you done?
No, not yet. So the last two things, we have the electric scooter and the electric bike. This is actually a pretty old thing, but spiked in popularity maybe like 5 years ago. You'll see like stations, maybe in New York, like every block or so, that just have like an electric bike or electric scooter that you can like rent out and just like ride to like 4 blocks, let's say. And it's really convenient for the rider. It doesn't cost as much. And it's really nice if you don't want to walk all that time or have to go and drive all that way. Okay, yeah.
So do you guys have any questions whatsoever, because I'm not willing to answer them later? No one? Aryan?
What about the electric bike?
Did you explain the electric plane?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Oh, I'm sorry about that. So basically, the electric plane, one of the coolest things I came across while researching, on the right, we have a plane from Hart Aerospace. It's called the ES-30. And it is a fully electric plane, can carry 25 passengers and can go 200 kilometers if, of course, it's fully electric. There are hybrid versions that can go 400 kilometers and also 800 kilometers, but those aren't fully electric. This company, Hart Aerospace, is predicting that they'll go on to increase that range from 200 kilometers to 400 kilometers by 2030. That is speculation, but that is what they're trying to achieve at the moment. Okay, that's it.
Okay, I'll ask again. Any questions? Sorry about that. Do you have a question? Okay, so if you guys don't have questions for me, I'm going to ask you questions. So, can anyone tell me what the 3 parts of a motor are? At least the motor we covered. Reshman? That's not a part of the motor. Yatin? What? Did you just say engine? No, okay. Aryan?
No friction bearings?
That is one of them. Anyone else? Or should I just give you the answer? Okay, so the 3 parts of a motor are the rotor, the stator, and the low friction bearing. What is, okay, another question. What is the negative side of a battery? I don't know your name, sorry.
The anode.
Correct. What is the positive side of a battery? You in the back, I don't know what your name is. Can you repeat that, please? That wasn't the question? No. What? Okay, I'll just give you the answer. It's called the cathode. Not canode, cathode. Okay, I'll ask one last time. No questions? Reshman?
Mention in your movie, are electric vehicles good or bad? Are they good or bad?
So as of right now, they do have positives and negatives, like we covered before. So right now, they're slightly better than gasoline vehicles, mainly because they don't have emissions during usage. But as the technology of electric vehicles keeps going and progresses, and the manufacturing process becomes more efficient, electric cars will definitely, in the future, be a lot better than gasoline vehicles. Dev?
Which one would you prefer?
An electric vehicle.
Electricity environmental friendly?
So that is a good question, actually. Electricity is more environmentally friendly than regular gas, but you have to keep in mind that a lot of the electricity we have right now comes from burning fossil fuels, and this alone creates a lot of emissions, and it's not as good as some people think. However, in the future, as we shift towards green energy using water dams and windmills and all sorts of solar panels, it will become cleaner. Arian?
Compared to like emissions, do you think like the mining of lithium batteries or like purifying of lithium it produces more emissions of carbon dioxide?
Okay, let me just say this real quick. Last question, sorry. So creating a electric vehicle creates a lot more emissions than creating a gasoline vehicle. Creating an electric vehicle could produce around 17 tons of CO2. A gasoline vehicle is only around 7. Okay, so this is because the lithium has to be mined, obviously. What was the question again?
Carbon emissions in gas cars compared to carbon emissions from EV cars, like in the model purification of lithium. Which one's worse?
So the production and purification of lithium is far worse than creating gas vehicles. However, electric cars do make up for this during usage. Anywhere between 6 months and 2 years of an electric car being used, it already helps the environment more than a gasoline vehicle. This is an example. Let's take the least efficient electric vehicle, a Porsche Taycan, and pair it with the dirtiest power source possible, say a coal plant. That is still more emission-free than the most efficient gas vehicle possible, the Mitsubishi Mirage, after a certain point in time. Okay, yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our second group from Island Middle School. It's called The Afterlife, and it's with Pratha, Nayati, and Isabel.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, my name is Nyansi.
I'm Isabel. And I'm Pratha.
Okay. Many of us often ponder our mortality and question what will happen after we die. We find a way to cope with this existential question, whether it's through religion, philosophy, or simply accepting the unknown. When humans die, it is thought that they go to an unknown location known as the afterlife. In many religions, the afterlife is defined as life after death.
So we're going to be starting off with mourning. So mourning is basically just the expression of deep sorrow and grief that usually follows a loved one's death or another serious loss. Common conventions that come with mourning are funerals and wearing a specific color. So we're going to be talking about Christianity first. So a Christianity funeral service takes about half an hour to an hour at a church, cemetery, or a crematorium. Usually it includes hymns, which are religious songs, and a sermon, which is a religious talk based off a passage in the Bible given by a priest, which is a religious leader. It's common to dress modestly, which means to have your elbows and knees covered, and also to wear dark colors such as like navy and black. The attendees of the funeral, they usually bring like gifts and flowers to the family of the dead for respect. Okay, now moving on to how Muslims and they follow the religion of Islam. So normal funerals happen at a mosque, which is their place of worship, or they happen at a cemetery. And burial is the most common practice, and family of the deceased wear the color white, while all other attendees wear dark colors to show that they are mourning. Both men and women are expected to dress modestly, meaning their knees and their elbows are covered, and oftentimes women cover their hair once again to show respect. Prayers from the Quran, which is the religious book, are read, and there are religious songs that are played. And oftentimes there is no casket, but the body is covered in a white shroud or a white cloth, because Muslims believe that you have entered this world with no materialistic items, so you must leave the same exact way. And this entire service is held by an imam, which is a Muslim priest. Okay, so now moving on to how Hindus mourn, which is the religion of Hinduism. So cremation is the norm, and this is like burning of the body. And as you can see in the picture, it's done with logs. And very similar to Muslims, they cover the body in a white wrapping because they believe you have entered the earth with nothing, so you must leave the same exact way. The ashes of the deceased are kept sacred and oftentimes are spread in the Ganga River, which is known as a very purifying river.
Burial is also common, but during burial, flowers are laid at the deceased's feet. And after 13 days of the funeral, there are pujas held, which are religious rituals, and this is done to help give the soul eternal rest. The entire funeral service is about an hour long, and attendees wear white, and this is all held by a guru, which is a Hindu priest.
Moving on to ancient Egyptians. So the first process that would happen is mummification. Mummification is the process of embalming or preserving a dead body. So during the actual mourning and funeral, men would not shave and women would tear their clothes and smear dirt on their faces as a sign of grief. And there was one very important ritual that would take place. It was called the opening of the mouth ceremony. In that ceremony, a priest would read spells from the Book of the Dead, and they would resurrect the mummy's senses, allowing it to see and hear again to make sure it can do all that in the afterlife.
So all religions have different beliefs about the afterlife, but they can't be scientifically proven true or false. However, this does not stop people from having their own set of beliefs, and there are over 4,000 recognized religions that have its own set of beliefs on what happens to a person when they die. So Christianity is all about hell and heaven. So how heaven and hell came to Christianity was over 2,000 years ago when Jesus first died, and he went up to heaven. But then he opened the gates of heaven, but then he went back down to hell to try and free the ones wrongfully there. Then he went back up to heaven to begin Judgment Day. So Judgment Day is for those who have passed away on earth, and it's for people who have died and are ready to be judged based on the deeds they've done in their life. If they've done enough good deeds in their life, they get to go up to heaven, which is eternal happiness and joy. But if they've done too many sins in their life, they go down to hell, which is pain and suffering. For those who are they're unable to preach Christianity, such as the unborn and infants, they just skip Judgment Day and go straight to heaven. But there's also a branch of Christianity called the Catholic Church. They also believe in purgatory. Purgatory is really similar to hell, but basically it's not permanent. Once they repented on their actions, they get to go up to heaven.
So both Islam and Christianity rooted from Judaism, which is why they have very similar beliefs. Now, just like Christianity, they have a very similar heaven and hell, but they have different names, and it's Jannah and Jahannam. Jannah being very similar to heaven, and Jahannam being very similar to hell. And basically what happens is once you die, you lay where you rest in your grave or wherever until Allah, which is their Almighty God, sends down angels to resurrect you and take you back to where He resides. Then based on what you've done while on earth, if you've had more good deeds versus bad, you are judged, and based on that, you go to either Jannah or Jahannam. Muslims believe that Allah is a very forgiving being, so if you do happen to end up in Jahannam, which is very similar to hell, then you are able to repent on your actions, feel bad, and get a second chance, and ultimately end up in Jannah. And this entire process of life after death is basically called Akira, and once again, it's very, very similar to Christianity. Okay, now moving on to what Hindus believe. Hindus believe in something different called reincarnation. This means once you die, you aren't fully dead, you're just reborn as another being, whether it be a deer, an animal, a plant, anything. And they believe that the soul contains the actual state of mind, while the body is simply a vessel. So once you die, you are born again, and as you can see, it's like a whole graph, it's a whole cycle, and it's just repeating until you acquire moksha, and I'll talk about that later. So what you're reborn as depends on your karma. Now, karma is the account of bad and good deeds that you've done, and if you have more bad than good, you are more likely to be reborn as a person, or not exactly a person, but a fly, or a being with a very small lifespan. And as you can see, there's one exception, and that's called moksha. And this is only acquired by those who have a very pure soul, have no greed, no selfishness. And this means you reside in a spirit realm, very similar to heaven and Jannah, where you reside with Vishnu. And another very important fact about the entire cycle of reincarnation is you cannot remember your past life. You're simply born as a baby, you don't remember anything from your past.
Moving on to the ancient Egyptians. So the ancient Egyptians believed that your life on earth was simply a stage of an everlasting journey rather than the end of life. So on the journey to the afterlife, a mummy travels through a solar bark. Does anyone know what a solar bark is? Okay, I didn't think so. So a solar bark is when they travel through the rays of the sun. So a mummy would travel through the rays of the sun and enter the land of Duat. Duat is basically the realm of the underworld where all the deceased gods were. So a soul known as a Ka to the ancient Egyptians would travel through 7 gates, correctly reciting magic spells at each gate using the Book of the Dead that was provided to them at their funeral. So if they pass all those 7 gates, they would go to the Hall of the Truth, which is the place of judgment. Over there, the deceased gods would perform the weighing of the heart ceremony. During the weighing of the heart ceremony, they would measure your heart to see if your earthly activities were virtuous. So the more good deeds you did, the lighter your heart was, and if you did bad deeds, the heavier your heart got. So they would measure your heart on a scale. Like over here, that's the Hall of Truth. And if you pass, and if your heart is lighter than a feather, you would go on to the field of reeds, also known as Aru. Aru was known to the Egyptians as a forever paradise, and every Egyptian's goal was to go to Aru. But if your heart was deemed heavier than the feather, the deceased god Amenti would fling it onto the floor and devour it, and your soul would vanish. The Egyptians believed that there was no hell, and there was no doom worse than death. Okay, so in conclusion, many religions provide us with proof of a belief of some type of personal afterlife, varying from the dead continuing to have new experiences to rebirth into another body. Although many beliefs sound promising, without any scientific evidence or proof, no religion is necessarily correct about their belief. But such traditions contributing with their beliefs give us a way to think about the afterlife. Humans will never really know what the afterlife really is, or even if there is one, but these religions give us an idea of what to believe. Thank you.
We are now, I see Mr. McGroarty in the back who's going to come and talk to us about mathematics and the advanced classes available to you for mathematics in the high schools. Good, how are you?
Good to see you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Is this too loud? Good morning. So, my name is Mr. McGroarty. I am the mathematics department head here at JFK High School. And I'm just going to say a few little things about math placement. Show of hands, how many people have already taken Algebra 1? Okay, very good. Even our seniors over here have also taken Algebra 1, which is a really great sign. But yeah, for those 8th graders who have taken Algebra 1, you would be looking to take geometry next year, geometry honours, okay? So again, that mainly people at Islin Middle and Fords Middle will be joining us at JFK. But Colonia people as well, or Woodbridge people, you would probably follow the same progression. So 9th grade, normally geometry honours. Then 10th grade, our more advanced students like to double up. So they like to take Algebra 2 honours in the fall semester, and then they take pre-calculus C in the spring semester. So again, the biggest difference you'll see between math at the middle school and math at the high school is at the high school, we have only 90 days, whereas you guys take math for the full year, correct? Yeah, so that's the biggest difference. We still have about the same amount of time, roughly 85 minutes. And then junior year, the advanced students do AP Calculus AB in the fall semester, and they do AP Calculus BC in the spring semester. And just to give you an idea how many people that is, this year we have about 50 people doing AP Calculus BC in our school. And then senior year, some students come back and do Calculus 3, Okay, this year we had 17 students in that class. Along the way, you can also, if you really like math and you're interested in more APs, we also have AP statistics, which is geared for students who are, you know, just interested in probability, things of that nature, and it does not have to follow the progression I just mentioned. And I just also want to give a big plug. Recently, myself and Mr. Davis, our computer science teacher, had a great trip to Island Middle. So hopefully we're able to explain to you guys at Island Middle about computer science. We have 3 computer science classes, and actually, ironically, the easiest class in terms of the progression has an AP. It's called AP Computer Science Principles, and we really want to get incoming freshmen interested in that. And then after that, if you're really into computer programming, things of that nature, we would have Intro to Computer Science Honours, and then AP Computer Science A, which is really heavy on the programming. Okay, guys, I've talked for a long time with a really terrible accent. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. Say it again.
3 the highest thing.
Calculus 3 right now is the highest course we can take. Yeah. Hopefully someday I can see you in there.
Can we double up in 9th grade?
So you will be. I am very excited to tell you guys that you can double up this year in 9th grade. But in the past, students who did Algebra 1, who were incoming and did Algebra 1, they weren't able to double up. They didn't allow freshmen to double up, but we will allow freshmen to double up in the future. Our principal, Dr. Parry, has said that. But in my humble opinion, if you come in, will you be coming in to do geometry? Yeah, you really don't want to double up then, because what has really been tried and true and very proven method of being successful is if you do Algebra 2 in the fall, then pre-calc in the spring, you're really building on your Algebra 2 skills in pre-calc. So I would recommend that. I would recommend anybody hasn't done Algebra 1 yet? Okay, so then you would be in the scenario of somebody who could double up. If you really are into math and you want to do well, you could do Algebra 1 in the fall and then geometry in the spring next year as a freshman. And then you could go on to Algebra 2 honours in sophomore year and pre-calc C in the spring semester. Okay? Question at the back?
So we weren't sure if it was possible for us to take Algebra 2 and then pre-calculus this year. Like, I don't think they're letting us take it.
I will, well, if Ms. Freeland gives me your contact information, I will be happy to do some research on your behalf. What's your first name?
Sarah.
Sarah? Okay, Sarah, I'll get your information from Ms. Freeland, but that definitely is a Colonia decision. But in the past, I know with JFK, next year is the first year anybody is allowed to double up. So I'm really excited about that, because in the past, we had students, you know, like you, Sarah, who might come in and do Algebra 2, but then you were waiting. And then the problem is then you get knocked off by a year, because then to do AP Calculus A, B, and BC, you must do AP Calculus A, B in the fall. And then you have to do AP Calculus BC in the spring. You have to do it in that order, so that's the problem. Any other questions? Young man at the front, yeah. Love your jacket, by the way.
Thank you. Number 1, I love your accent.
Oh, thank you.
Number 2, is it possible to run out of math classes too?
Well, I will be honest with you, but I am so blessed to be here with you guys today, and the presentations that I've seen, I was in the back there for a little bit, amazing, and you guys all speak so well. So, yes, I currently have juniors this year who have taken Calc 3. Okay, they took Calc 3 in the fall, but, you know, when you're that smart, like all of you guys in this room, you should be able to find other things to, you know, gravitate towards. Like, there's so many science classes. Again, there's so many computer science classes. So I really don't think we're at the stage where we want to bring in a class past Calculus 3. Like that would be crazy, okay? But that's a really good question. So yeah, you could go through all those maths. But again, that'd be my goal. Did you find something else to challenge you, right? Like science, invent a cure for cancer, things like that. You know, you look like that. You look like that kind of bright young man. Anybody else? I don't want to hold up Ms. Vreeland's very tightly knit together program. Yeah.
Are you allowed to math over the summer?
No, so summer math is not allowed at JFK. That's a really good question, and I'll be honest with you, it's not to make your life miserable. We found over the years that students who did the summer math, it just wasn't as good as the math that we offer at our high school. And then we had students take the online, and like, for example, trigonometry is a really big part of pre-calculus, and they barely learned how to spell trigonometry. So that's how little they did. So they were at a disadvantage as they moved on. So no, at JFK, there's no summer classes allowed. It's only reserved for students who, nobody in this room would fit that bill, but fail a course. Okay? Any other questions? Guys, thank you very much for your time. Ms. Vreeland, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I guess we saved your favorite, at least, for last with Mr. McGrarty. And I don't know how. It's been 20 years since I worked in this building, and you have the same exact accent. It has not faded at all. So thank you for all your great questions. Thank you for answering them, and I'll get you that information. I just want to take a couple of minutes. Some people have mentioned AP classes and college classes. I just want to clarify the difference for you as you're thinking about your schedule. So AP classes are offered at your high schools. There are about 25 different subjects throughout the district and most of them are offered at all three high schools. There are some that may only be offered at one or the other, but most of them are offered at all three high schools. Those classes are approved by the College Board, the same group that does the SATs, and they're kind of about the transition between high school and college. So the College Board approves the AP classes, and then you take the class and you get whatever grade you get in it goes on your high school transcript. And if you want to get college credit for the class, you have to take the AP exam in May. And then, depending on the score you get and the score that your college accepts, you may get college credit for the course. So it's not an automatic thing, okay? But there are lots of AP classes. They are great to add to your schedule. They're very challenging, and they're something that you should consider throughout your high school career. The earliest ones that you can take are as a freshman, all right? The other type of classes is dual enrollment classes. Those are classes that they say cost a little bit of money. They cost much less than the same course would cost you in college. They give you a discount because you're taking it in high school. Okay? And they can be from a variety of colleges. They can be from Middlesex County College. They can be from Syracuse. The classes that people mentioned, SUPA, those are Syracuse University Project Advance. Those are Syracuse dual enrollment classes. But there are other colleges as well that we offer in our high schools. When you take those classes, you get a grade as a high school student on your high school transcripts, and you get a grade on a college transcript from the college that's partnering with us, okay? That's why you have to pay a little bit of money. It's the processing for the college to get the college grades and the college transcripts, okay? So that, it's not dependent on an exam. Whatever grade you get in the class is the same grade that goes on your high school and your college transcripts, and there are a number of classes that your guidance counselors can tell you what's available to you, but they just work a little differently, right? Whether you take an exam or you just get the grade that you got in the class. Any questions on that? Did you still have a question? Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, so I think we are up to presentation number 6. unless I left anything out. And number 6 is Woodbridge Middle School, talking about G-Force, Liam Finnerty and Aiden Rose.
Hi, I'm Aiden.
And I'm Liam.
And today we'll be talking about G-Force. We're going to talk about how it works and where it can happen, some people who contributed to learning about it, different effects in space and underwater, and a few other things. So G-Force was first discovered by Isaac Newton in the 17th century. And what it is a measure of acceleration, and higher speeds and sharper turns is equivalent to more G-force. What G-force does is it causes blood to flow out of your brain and stops blood from getting there, causing you to black out. 9 Gs is what a normal person can withstand, but people like pilots go through training to withstand more G-forces, and there are suits to help protect even further. Each G is more times heavier, so if you're 100 pounds, you're 1 G, and that would be your normal weight, but if you're 2 Gs, well, you're experiencing 2 Gs, then you would be 200 pounds, and if you're experiencing 3 Gs, it would be 300 pounds, and so on.
Another thing is negative G-force, which is the complete opposite of G-force. So instead of blood pooling in your feet, it would go into your brain instead. When you would experience G-force, it would normally be when you're moving forward. So when you move forward, blood from your heart pumps down into your legs and your feet. And when you experience negative G-force, you're going backwards, and most likely the blood would pool in your head and your neck area.
So where you can experience G-force, technically you are all experiencing G-force right now because you're always 1 G. But other places you can experience it include space and underwater, and when you're driving in trains, submarines, roller coasters, and the G's vary depending on what activity you're doing.
So when you're riding somewhere like a car or a roller coaster, you might have that feeling of getting pushed back into your seat, and that's what G-force is. It's that feeling of getting pushed back into your seat or getting moved somewhere, because when you're going forward, and depending on how fast you're going forward, your gravity is working against you because your blood and stuff is going to start pooling in your legs. And as I said, the opposite is negative G-force, so when you're going in reverse, your blood is going to end up going up towards your head instead of in your feet. This is Wilbur Rounding Franks, and he invented the G-force suit in 1942. The G-force suit provides pressure to your legs, so when you're in something like a fighter jet and you're experiencing lots of G-force and high speeds, the G-force suit provides pressure to keep blood going to your brain and staying out of your feet. This can definitely help keep people alive when you're in fighter jets, because this can prevent blackout, which is what happens when your blood has a lack of, your brain has a lack of blood, and you can possibly die because of blackout. The G-force suit prevents this because, or at least in most cases, it prevents it because it provides pressure and keeps blood in your heart and in your brain.
So when you're underwater and experiencing G-force, underwater immersion actually helps withstand G-force. A good example would be a LIBO G-force suit, which is a water-filled G-suit, and it spreads the pressure evenly, the G-force pressure evenly, and helps prevent blackouts. Another good example would be whales. Because they're so big, the pull by G-force is greater. And on land, they wouldn't be able to survive at max 2 Gs, but in water, they can survive much more. If a human is submerged in water and experiencing G-force, a limiting factor would be the air in their tissues. Too much acceleration would cause the air bubbles to rip through the human tissue, and if hypothetically the air bubbles were removed and replaced with water, then density differences would become a problem.
So elaborating on what he said, if you were to travel underwater and experience G-force, certain parts of your body, is what this means, can move through the water easier. So when you're experiencing G-force under the water, this can cause you to get ripped apart if you're going at high enough speeds. G-force in space can be different depending on what planet or where you are, because nowhere in the universe are you experiencing a true lack of gravity. No matter where you are always experiencing gravity, but that can depend on what planet you're on. So if you're on Jupiter, you will still always experience 1G if you are not accelerating, because it experiences how much the average weight is there. So when you're on Earth, 1G might be different than if you were on Jupiter. So the Earth itself isn't actually a perfect sphere, and it isn't perfect because everything weighs a different amount. If you were to pick up a bar of soap versus a bar of silver or something, you would notice it would weigh a very large different amount. So when you are in different places of the world, especially towards the poles, you weigh way more because you are closer to the core, and if you were on the equator, you would weigh less because you're further away from the core, and the Earth has a less gravity. John Stapp experienced around over 40 Gs while he was on the rocket sled, and that would mean that if he weighed 100 pounds, which is already below the average weight, he would weigh over 4,000 pounds for a very short period of time. This is almost always going to kill somebody, but considering the fact that it was such a short period of time, and I guess a bit of luck played a role in it, we don't really know how he survived this level of G-force, and we also are sure that when he did end up dying, it was not related to G-force, and he made a full recovery due to his injuries. The trapjaw ant is very interesting because, as Aiden said earlier, bigger creatures can experience less G-force and smaller ones can experience more G-force. So when a trapjaw ant shuts its jaws, for one, it does it so fast that you can't even notice it, but it is so fast that it experiences 100,000 Gs in a fraction of a second, which means it weighs over 100,000 times more than it normally would for a very short period of time. And that's G-force.
All right, thank you everyone. Congratulations to all our presenters and everyone on your projects. Hope you enjoyed today and you have lots of information. If there's any questions about the information today, again, feel free to call the G&T office or ask your parents to do that. So please quickly gather your things.